Andrew Tate. Is he free or slave of the Matrix? Now, normally I wouldn't do this type of video, but this time I will make an exception because I see that a very influential person is spreading seeds, and these seeds can also mislead people. They are embodiment of unhealthy patterns. So this video is specifically intended to address Andrew's claims that he has escaped the Matrix. Before we dive deeper in this video, I want to share with you a few interesting details about creation of this video. Background. If you want to skip that, you can just do that and click to the next timestamp. Now, we have to understand that always when we focus on specific thing, we interact with its energy field. And when I focused on Tate and started thinking, how should I structure this video, on what should it be about, I felt like I was being disturbed. Repeated interference, even to point where I came to doubt my decision making this video. If I should do this, if I should not do this. Was I right? And I later realized that it was the energy field of this topic that made it difficult. If I would have to describe it in words, it's like extremely mentalized, rigid structure, like a cloud that does not want to be uncovered. That's how it felt focusing on this topic. And I felt that this energy field was massive because it involved not just Tate, but also other people, men, women, masculinity, femininity, etc. I felt interaction with this topic like this huge, rigid, mental energy field, like a maze. These different layers and projections. And it was very difficult to perceive at times. Very disruptive effect when I focused on this topic. I even came at times dizzy, like it was difficult and I had to stop. So his energy field, or this topic's energy field, was very disruptive, at least for me. Super mental energy. I didn't feel any connection to heart, only to mind. so strong mental energy that could cause almost like a mental paralysis, could cause confusion. It was difficult to focus, very disruptive energy, to a point even when I started to feel headaches. Yeah, that was my experience. Background. Now back to the question, is Tate slave or not? Slave of the matrix or free of the matrix? If we agree, if we have consensus that by matrix we understand a driving force that is behind a massive control of humanity, then Mr. Tate has missed one important fundamental thing, and that is the game of labels. In other words, ego world, which is very important for the matrix. We can also call it attachment to the form identity. If we identify with our bodies, naturally we can feel insignificant compared to the rest of the world, and we want to stand out. We want to sense ourselves as more. So our sense of self gets artificially inflated with different objects, such as possessions, achievements, abilities, skills, traits, also stories and experiences, and so on. And by observing Andrew Tate in videos, his behavior, how he talks, it's pretty clear that he is actively and obsessively engaged in this form label game of ego, mind, so much that he reminds someone who is totally enslaved or possessed by his own mind-made self-identity, his ego. And that is exactly what the so-called matrix is counting on, for it to be able to enslave humanity on individual and also on collective level. What matrix does is it uses our own insecurities, our own limiting beliefs, patterns, our own low self-worth, that shrinks our true essence of identity, who we really are. And it puts humans in increasingly limiting sense of self, increasingly narrower identity, limitations. And that all happens against humans. And Andrew is playing this game of labels. This game involves division, competition, hierarchy, territorial aggression, possessive, controlling, dominating characteristics, overly relying on material or physical world. And that is the legacy of our inherited reptilian brain that keeps us in survival, animalistic, instinctive mode. That is the old, low vibrational consciousness. It's part of the matrix. Is Tate free from that? Not at all. I do not see how Tate has escaped the matrix. In fact, I see the opposite, that he is in its grip, and he is almost like an ambassador of it. Whether he realizes it or not, and his actions and the way of being is symbolically embodying the matrix, the old consciousness. Being financially rich and thinking independently from the mainstream is not enough of escaping the matrix. By playing the same old label game, he cannot win. He's still trying to escape the matrix, and his greatest illusion is that he's not. It's more comforting to convince self otherwise. That's how distraction works. External source can only subject you if there is inner resonance in you with that subjection. So first, we as human species, human beings, we have to overcome the prison of our own minds, our limiting perceptions, before we can break free from the external control. Matrix exists in external and inner dimensions. And I see Andrew Tate as someone who is lost in his own mental maze. And most people have become slaves of their own servant, their mind. The more you keep playing this game, the more you keep getting lost. This game of labels, an ego, requires us to exercise more and more mental gymnastics in order to maintain this artificial persona, aka ego, our artificial sense of self, because it's very fragile and it constantly needs to be in defensive and offensive position to secure its frame in any interaction. It requires increasing effort to keep distracting self from the truth. And that means suppressing self. And usually large aggression can be also noticed in these people. If people are identified with the form identity, with its mind-made self, concepts, labels, ego, it's never complete. And so predominantly their existence is based on overly material, physical pleasures of life and other stimulus. And they're dependent on it because our ego, our mind-made self, cannot be satisfied for too long. It's almost never enough, almost always at unease, almost always constantly needs reinforce its sense of self and need to compensate its sense of insecurity. One way is also to keep self distracted. And that's where the great seduction of human free will lies. One of the things that Matrix does is it purposely has been putting out in the world and promoting over-exaggerated consumerism to get distracted, numb out. And why so many people follow Andrew on the internet and even large part consider him a role model? Well, there's always a resonance between him and those who find his message and way of being attractive. Usually when two people with similar dysfunctional patterns meet, they have something in common, and they can even spend a good amount of time together. They vibrate at a similar frequency, at least partly. And Tate is, in my eyes, more like a manifestation or symbol of collective humanity crisis. He's not a savior, but rather a mirror of those who seek the help. He reflects those who want spiritual bypass, distraction from healing, from true healing. And some souls might need this interaction with Tate and experience it in order to realize what is healthy, what is truly healthy and what is not. There are many people who claim that they are anti-system, when in reality they are serving the system quite well, and sometimes even without them realizing that. So that's it for today. I would love to know your take on Andrew Tate, his influence. Do you think it's serving people well or not? If yes, how? I would really love to know. Thank you for watching. Have a great 2023.